All right, let's dive into the world of strategy and influence. We're tackling Robert Greene's The 48 Laws of Power today.
It's a book it's certainly made a name for itself. A lot of people aiming for success in all sorts of fields have studied it.
Definitely. And we're going to use this really insightful YouTube summary as our guide for this deep dive. This book, it's often seen as like a guidebook for, well, cutthroat ambition, but we're going to look at it a little differently today.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, we're going to see it as a way to understand the dynamics of power. They're always there, whether we're aware of them or not.
It's those subtle rules, often unspoken, that govern how people interact and how they influence each other. Really fascinating stuff.
Exactly. So Greene, he breaks down these 48 laws into three categories: laws for gaining power, laws for maintaining power, and laws for defending power. Think of it like a playbook, not necessarily for dominating others, but for understanding how to navigate those complexities of power.
It's a framework, a way of understanding how to get influence, hold on to it, and even protect yourself from those who might be trying to undermine you.
Right. Okay, so let's jump into those laws for gaining power. The source we're looking at, it highlights 15 laws in this section. And some of them are, they're surprisingly counterintuitive.
Yeah, I agree.
Like, for example, law number 1, never outshine the master. This one, it really highlights how important it is to manage perception, especially when you're dealing with, with people who are in higher positions than you.
It's not about, downplaying your own talents or anything. It's about recognizing that if you make your superiors feel threatened, that can really hurt your chances of moving up. Greene actually uses the example of King Louis XIV. He surrounded himself with people who would never outshine him, who wouldn't overshadow his own brilliance.
So it's about being strategic.
Yeah.
Making sure you don't accidentally step on anyone's toes while still, showing what you can do.
Exactly. And this actually ties in really well with law number 3. Conceal your intentions.
Oh, sneaky.
It's kind of like a game of chess. If your rivals, if they don't know what your ultimate goal is, they can't really counter your moves.
Ah, I see. So this doesn't mean being deceitful, right? It's more about understanding that if you reveal your motives too early, it gives other people the opportunity to manipulate you or outmaneuver you. Like, imagine you're in a negotiation, right? If you reveal your bottom line right away, well, that puts you at a huge disadvantage.
Exactly. It's about strategic timing, knowing when to hold back information to maximize your influence.
Okay, I like it.
Yeah.
Let's talk about law number 9. Win through your actions, never through argument. This one really resonated with me because it emphasizes letting your accomplishments speak for themselves.
It's understanding that words, they can be fleeting. Actions, on the other hand, actions have a much more lasting impact. If you want to gain influence, focus on delivering results, tangible results, instead of getting caught up in endless debates or trying to convince people just with fancy words.
It's that old saying, actions speak louder than words, right?
Exactly.
Okay. Now, there's one law that, it really stood out because of its intensity. Law number 15, crush your enemy totally. Greene, he argues that if you leave even a little bit of your opponent's power intact, it allows them to regroup and, potentially come back and challenge you again in the future.
It's a pretty ruthless strategy, for sure. It suggests that the only way to be safe, to really be dominant, is to completely and utterly defeat your opponent. But it does raise some questions, ethical questions about the cost of this kind of approach. Is it always necessary to completely destroy your rivals? Is it even ethical?
That's a good point. It's like a reminder that while these laws give us insights into how power works, applying them, it requires us to think carefully about the potential consequences, right? And to make sure that they align with our own sense of right and wrong. All right, so we've talked about gaining power. But now let's shift gears a bit and talk about maintaining it. This section, Laws for Maintaining Power, it dives into how to solidify your position, once you've gotten a foothold.
Yeah, it's less about the climb and more about the subtle strategies you need to stay at the top.
Right. It's a different skill set, isn't it?
Absolutely. It's not enough to just get influence. You have to know how to hold on to it. It's an art in itself.
Okay, so that brings us to Law 16. This one is called Use Absence to Increase Respect and Honor.
Interesting, right?
It seems kind of counterintuitive. You'd think being present all the time, would equal power.
You would, wouldn't you? But Greene, he suggests that there's power in scarcity. The less available you are, the more valuable you seem.
Oh, I see what you mean. Like, we always want what we can't have.
Exactly. It's like, think about a collector's item, right? The rarer it is, the more people want it.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. So it's about strategic withdrawal, not being too available so that when you do show up, it has more impact.
Precisely. And you can apply this to so many things, from negotiations to even to building your personal brand. Think about luxury brands, for example. They often thrive on being exclusive, on limited availability. It creates that sense of desire, that prestige.
Right, right. Okay, next up we have Law 17. This one is called Keep Others in Suspended Terror. Cultivate an air of unpredictability.
This one sounds a little intense.
Yeah, this one gets people talking.
Yeah.
It's about the power of keeping people guessing. If your actions are always predictable, well, your opponents can figure you out, right? They can counter you. But if you're unpredictable, you keep them off balance.
So it's like keeping them on their toes, never letting them know what to expect. I can see how that could be really powerful, especially for a leader.
It can be, but could it backfire too if you take it too far? I mean,
Oh, definitely. There's a fine line between being strategically unpredictable and just being erratic. It's all about finding that balance, using it to your advantage without creating chaos or losing people's trust.
okay, yeah, that's a good point. All right, Law 19. This one takes a very different approach. It's all about social dynamics. It's called Play the Perfect Courtier. It's about being charming, making yourself agreeable, even if you have, ulterior motives.
It's about social intelligence, really. Think about those people who are amazing networkers, right? They just have this natural ability to make people feel comfortable, to build rapport. And that can be so valuable, especially when you're dealing with complicated social situations.
So it's being strategic with your social interactions, understanding how to influence people, through charm and finesse. But like a lot of these laws, it does make you think about authenticity, right?
Yeah.
And manipulation.
Absolutely. It's up to each person to decide how they're going to use these principles. Are they using them to connect with people genuinely or to manipulate them for their own benefit?
Yeah, that's a good question. Okay, let's wrap up this section with Law 28. Control the options. Get others to play with the cards you deal. This one sounds pretty manipulative, to be honest.
It's about framing choices.
Yeah.
By presenting options to people in a certain way, you can subtly influence their decisions, even if they feel like they're the ones in control.
So you're like the puppet master, setting the stage and guiding people towards the choices you want them to make, and they don't even realize it's happening.
Exactly. Think about marketing campaigns, for example. They do this all the time. They present a limited set of options, all designed to steer you towards a particular product or service.
Wow. That's pretty powerful. But again, it comes down to ethics, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Are you using this knowledge to help people make good decisions, or are you using it to manipulate them for your own gain? All right, so we've explored gaining power, maintaining power. Now let's get into the final act. Laws for defending power. This is where things get really interesting, don't you think?
Yeah, definitely. Now the focus shifts to protecting what you've built. Being vigilant. You have to recognize that once you've reached a position of power, you become a target.
Makes sense. People are always going to try to challenge you, right? Maybe even try to take what you have.
Exactly. And that's where Law 31 comes in. Be royal in your own fashion. Act like a king to be treated like one.
So what's that all about?
It's about projecting confidence, authority, regardless of your actual title or position.
It's like owning your space.
Yeah.
Commanding respect, not just through what you say, but through how you carry yourself.
Exactly. Think about some of the great leaders throughout history. They often had a certain presence, a way of carrying themselves that just, it inspired both awe and respect.
Right. It's about embodying those qualities.
Mm-hmm.
And I can see how that translates to the world today. Whether you're leading a team, pitching an idea, or just dealing with a difficult situation, projecting confidence can make a huge difference in how people see you, how they react to you.
Absolutely. And then there's Law 32. This one is all about timing. Master the art of timing. It's crucial, both for seizing opportunities and for avoiding those potential pitfalls.
Yeah, timing is everything.
It really is. Knowing when to act, when to be patient, that can be the difference between success and failure. Think about a military strategist, right? They don't just charge into battle. They assess the situation, they wait for the right moment, and then they strike.
So it's being strategic, calculated, not just reacting on impulse, but thinking carefully about when you make your move.
Exactly. And sometimes the best move is to do nothing at all. to just wait patiently for the situation to change in your favor.
Okay, that's interesting. And that actually leads us to Law 36. Disdain things you cannot have. Ignoring them is the best revenge. This one seems kind of counterintuitive, especially in a book that's all about power. You'd think it would be about getting everything you can, controlling everything.
Right. But there's wisdom in recognizing that you can't control everything. If you fixate on what you can't have, it just leads to frustration, resentment. It's much better to focus your energy on the things you can influence, the things you can change, and let go of the rest.
So it's about choosing your battles,
Right.
not wasting energy on things that are, well, beyond your control.
Exactly. It's a very stoic idea, actually, which is surprising, in a book that's often seen as being about ambition and manipulation. It's about realizing that true power lies in mastering yourself, your emotions, your desires.
That's a good point. Okay, and finally we have Law 40. Strike the shepherd and the sheep will scatter. This one is, well, it's definitely a bit more on the ruthless side.
It is. It's about recognizing that power structures often revolve around one key figure, a leader. And if you target that leader, if you neutralize them, well, the whole structure can crumble.
So it's like taking out the head honcho to create chaos, disrupt the whole system.
Exactly. Think about historical revolutions or even, corporate takeovers. They often involve targeting the person at the top, creating a power vacuum to make way for change.
It's a bold move. But like many of these laws, it does raise questions about the ethics of it all, and the consequences.
Right. It's a good reminder that power can be a double-edged sword. Using it effectively means thinking carefully about the impact your actions will have on others.
Absolutely. So we've covered a lot of ground today. We've explored these 48 laws of power, from gaining influence to defending it. But what's the takeaway for our listeners? What do we want them to walk away with?
I think the most important insight is that power dynamics, they're everywhere, whether we realize it or not. By understanding these laws, we can become more aware of these dynamics, and that allows us to navigate them more effectively.
Right. It's not about becoming some kind of master manipulator. It's about using this knowledge to understand human behavior, to make strategic decisions, and ultimately to achieve our goals in a way that aligns with our values.
Exactly. It's about empowering ourselves with knowledge, and then using that knowledge wisely.
So as you go about your day-to-day, I encourage you to think about these 48 laws. Which ones resonate with you? How might you apply them in your own life?
Think about your career, your relationships, your personal goals. How can understanding these power dynamics help you overcome challenges, reach your goals, and ultimately, well, create a more fulfilling life? It's definitely something to ponder.
Absolutely. Because ultimately, power, when used thoughtfully, ethically, it can be a force for good in the world.